Inara Valiyeva, Head of Innovation and Digital Development Agency, Azerbaijan. And our second speaker, Mr. James Tain, Managing Partner, Quest Ventures Fund, Singapore. Our next speaker is Dr. Linda Kassim, Senior Policy Advisor, Minister of Economy and Trade, Lebanon. The next speaker is our Ms. Hande Enes, Board Member, Group, Engin Group Consortium Limited. And our last speaker is Ms. Anar Aligulov, co-founder of Next Step Innovation, Center of Risk Company, and the founder of a few other startups. If he has a place to sit, he will sit. While preparing a seat for Mr. Anar, I want to thank for the participants, our guests, and our organizers, two ministries from Azerbaijan, Ministry of Economy and Ministry of Youth and Sports Ministries, and the COBIAS Small and Medium Business Development Agencies, and ICF. I thank you, the managers, the ministries, all organizers, on behalf of our visitors. So, this forum is the second forum we do it in Azerbaijan. Last year also we organized it. And the third panel of our third session is Power and Startup Growth, Building Effective Investment Ecosystem. You know, the startups, the feebles of the economy. The business begins with the ideas, with innovative and creative ideas, then the encourage, then the ecosystem, then the money, and the startup begins, the business begins. So, today we want to talk with our speakers, the ecosystem necessities, the growth opportunities of the startups and growth needs of the startups. So, I want to begin with Ms. Inara. First of all, I want to remark something. For every speaker, we have 8 minutes. I will give to all of them one question, to everyone, one different questions and a common question to all. So I request them to answer the first questions in 5 minutes. For the other time, for the second question, we have enough time. I want to begin with Ms. Inara Valiyeva. You know, she is the head of Innovation and Digital Development Agency of Azerbaijan. Innovation, as I said before in the beginning, innovation is very, very important for beginnings, for ideas, for creating or beginning a new startup. So, my first question is, what is the role of innovations in startups and the role of supports of Azerbaijan Innovation Digital Development Agency to start up in Azerbaijan? Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. So I guess it's hard time, right? Afternoon, everybody is kind of a bit asleep already, so I will try to be very short and very precise on what I want to say. First of all, I'm from renovated, re-established Innovation and Digital Development Agency. It's like less than 1 month only. And what we are doing, we want to and aspire to be the enabler of innovation ecosystem, which means, and when we're talking about the startups, we unfortunately or fortunately do not support them directly. We're enabling the ecosystem to grow. We're enabling the ecosystem players to develop and thus help the startups more and more. More startups and better help. So this is about our agency very shortly. When it comes to what we do overall and how we support the startup ecosystem is we are working with in direction of changes in legislation. We all talk about investment, but there is money out there, right? So it's not about the funds, it's about how they're distributed and whether the startups are getting that money. So it's about also capacity building of the startups, of mentors who support those startups, of investors who invest into startups or choose to invest their money otherwise into traditional business. So capacity building is the huge part of what we're doing and what we're focusing right now. Say it's the beginning of the funnel. And then the second part is supporting ecosystem players. So if you want to do something in terms of to help the ecosystem, to start an incubator, accelerator, to become a mentor, to create a co-working center. So if there is something that you have in your mind and obviously in your plans written and justified, then come to us and we will support. And how we support actually our partners, corporates, universities, and the players, it's with networking, the network that we can provide, validating the vendors that you are currently or want to work with. It's with funding. We do not fund directly the startups, but we fund and support with finance the ecosystem players, and obviously the capacity building. So whatever is needed to develop the early stage angel investors, some investor education programs, mentor development programs, this is what we're focusing on right now. And when it comes to what innovation means for startups, I think innovation is a startup, and startup is about innovation anyways. So to be successful, innovation should be in the DNA of the startup. So I want to thank everyone again for invitation. I want to wish good luck to all of the startups right here. And once again, if you want to do something within the ecosystem, we need you. Please come to us and we'll think of how to support you to support the ecosystem at the end of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As your beginning from the name of your agency, innovation is very, very important, not only for startups, also for all type of business, all other areas. So thank you for support, and the support we wish every day will be going up and help the business growth. Thank you very much. Now I want to go on with Mr. James Tan. He has a lot of titles, but I today want to use only the venture capital side, because he is also partner manager of Singapore Capital Venture Fund. So also my question is about, the ideas, business, everything is about the money. Is the other side is very big power. Without money, the ideas cannot come across. So today, what are the key elements and factors for startup growth? And what is the role of venture funds in growth of the ideas and startups?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Special thanks to the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum for the invitation to be here in beautiful Baku, Azerbaijan. And also thank you to Mr. Afni, moderator, for preparing us. The role of venture capital is, of course, from a venture capitalist perspective, will be especially important. As Ms. Inara pointed out earlier, she mentioned especially early stage investors, angels, and she also mentioned venture capital funds, and then she also mentioned grants from governments, agencies, and so on. So we want to work with all the different parties involved in all the different stages of funding. In Quest Ventures itself, we are based in Singapore, and for the last 20 years, we have been a recipient, and our startup has also been recipient of very generous government funding and a very supportive ecosystem that has enabled our startups and, of course, startups from the other venture funds to grow and to tap into a very vibrant ecosystem of VC funding. This VC funding is also helped very much by good regulations that have continuously evolved to allow capital to come in, and not just to be tax efficient and so on, but to have incentives to enable VCs from Japan, VCs from Korea, VCs from US to come in to do what they want to do what they need to do to galvanize the ecosystem. In the last 20 years, Singapore has went through 2 phases of encouraging overseas venture capital firms to set up in Singapore. The first phase was during the first .com boom in 2000, 2001, and the second phase was in about 10 years ago. The first phase was not successful, and it provided a lot of learning lessons on what not to do, primarily in incentivizing VC funds to relocate or to base themselves in Singapore. There must be anchors to encourage them to stay beyond the funding that they are given by the government. And so in the second wave of funding that happened 10 years ago in 2010, 2011, such conditions were mandated. And hence today, 10 years after that second wave, Singapore VC firms work side by side with VC firms from Korea, Japan, and so on and so forth, because they are now staying for the long term. They are not just there to monetize off initial grants from government, but also staying there for the long term. All these are still useless unless the startups are having exits. And so even for exits itself right now, most exits still happen in Hong Kong Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, NYSE, and so on. Even London Stock Exchange or Australia. So exits are very important for VC firms to look at, because without the exits, we can't pay back our investors the kind of investments they put into us and more. So for the challenges that we are seeing right now for Central Asia as a whole, including Azerbaijan, is that exits still happen outside, which is fine. And if you go down the value chain itself, exits happen outside, so therefore companies are necessarily inverted overseas. For our companies that we invest into in Kazakhstan, most of the time we relocate them to Singapore so that they can have an eventual exit or M&A opportunities in Singapore itself or in Southeast Asia. There are many challenges to address. I think in addressing any ecosystem, not just a venture capital side, we are looking at 5 pillars of any ecosystem before we dare to invest into an ecosystem. So the first pillar will be corporates. Are the corporates actively engaged in the ecosystem? The second one will be government. Are the government encouraging innovation to happen? Are the government having enough of a policy encouragement and even restriction to encourage such innovation and venture capital firms to work? Then on the IHLs, the third pillar, Institute of Higher Learning, is enough technology being commercialized? Are people graduating from universities encouraged to do startups? The fourth one would be risk capital, which is like people like us, angel investment firms and grants. And last but not least, are there sufficient startups created from the ecosystem who can tap into all these ecosystem support? So 5 pillars that we look into for every ecosystem before we invest into it. Back to you.
Thank you very much. As far as I know, you have a good success story about 5-5-1 in China. So maybe you can say a few words about your success, how it began and how came it today. And yeah.
Thanks for the question. I was looking there because I know that Nage is very well versed in this area, and I thought she might be a better person to answer. On scaling,
Yeah.
I think startups here need to be more ruthless. Startups tend to be more. I meet the founders here, and they tend to be gentlemen or lady, and they want to grow together. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way in startups. It doesn't work that way in business. You generally only have one winner called Uber or Bolt. You don't have many Bolts. As a consumer, you also don't want to have that. So there can only be one winner. So what I'm hoping to see for startups to be able to scale is that you really have to behave like a ruthless businessman or businesswoman and go out there to raise money to scale or to M&A, and these have to be inside your DNA.
Okay, thank you very much. And now I want to go with Dr. Linda Kassim, the Senior Policy Advisor, Minister of Economy and Trade, Lebanon. We are talking about creating ideas, creating business startups. So while the ideas and encourage and the working comes from the business side, the government side should do something. So I want to learn what are you advising to your ministry, to your government, and what kind of support should the governments give to build an effective investment environment for startups?
Well, thank you so much. First of all, allow me to thank the government of Azerbaijan for organizing this timely event. And also I would like to thank the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum for the organization and for the invite as well. This is my second time that I cooperate with them. Secondly, I would like to thank the startups, the participants, for your participation in this event, for making it so lively and innovative, and this adds to our creativity. From the created businesses, 10% only of which generally survive and become businesses, which is a remarkable percentage, by the way. That leads to a very big question. First of all, or the first W, it's the why. That those startups or businesses do not sustain. And this leads in turn to the second question, which is the what. What are the enabling factors that help those startups sustain? Then comes the how. If we reply to the first and second question, then comes the how. How can we help startups sustain and develop to nourish and reach maturity and sustainability? In fact, as an introduction that I chose to start with, I believe that answering the above questions could be a critical and important outcome of this event. Well, in principle, I was supposed to give an overview of the situation in Lebanon, because Lebanon, as most of you may know, that Lebanon is passing through an existential crisis, if I may describe it this way. It's really crisis at all levels, at the economic, at the financial level, and at the social level. And this makes it harder and harder on the startups in Lebanon to to establish and to sustain at the same time. But going back to the question that you imposed, and for the sake of time, I will not talk about Lebanon's situation in general. However, how I look at the reply to this question, I see that you have like the demand side, and you have the supply side, and you have the intermediaries in the middle, and you have the enabling environment. In the enabling environment, you have the incubators and accelerators, you have tax laws, let's say, and regulatory environment. And here where the government intervention comes. If we look at the role of the government, we can say that the government play a catalytic role in driving awareness, in driving skills and capital to the impact investment ecosystem. On the demand side, they can support social enterprise through technical assistance, investment readiness programs, and the procurement and among other initiatives. On the supply side, they can provide tax incentives, guarantees and subsidies, as well as co-invest in blended finance instruments. With the intermediaries, the government can create wholesale banks, exchange or other channels to facilitate the links between the supply and the demand. And finally, the government can influence fiscal, legal, and tax policies to drive interest and capital to the sector. I hope this way I would
Thank you very much.
provide your question. Thank you.
And now I want to go on with Ms. Hande Enes. She's a board member of Engin Group, and they are investor side. So I want to learn what kind of criteria do you look for investing in a startup, and what makes you excited?
Let me do a little correction, by the way. For 3 years, I am a fully tech investor. That's my family business. I'm known for my business, but for 3 years, just a full-time tech investor, because I invest in different parts of the world. I'm very sector agnostic and scaled investor, invested over 54 startups. That means a lot of reading, that means a lot of research, because people are having a lot of time, a lot of energy in their work. So to deserve to be an investor, I underline the word deserve. To be a good investor, I have to really work a lot. When we say entrepreneurship, actually we have to divide that word into two. If you open a cafe, if you initiate any business, that's also an entrepreneurship. But the entrepreneurship that we are talking about as individual tech investors or venture capitalists is the tech-based, innovative-based, highly scalable company and product models that we're talking about. So it's good to make that differentiation in that sense. So what we are looking for is, in a nutshell, people that are smarter than us. Because if they're less smarter than us, and if they're going to be a unicorn, we would found these companies and investors. So we are looking for very highly skilled, very game changer founders all around the world. So what do we mean by a highly skilled entrepreneur? First, I want to start with ethics. We are going to give you our very hardly earned monies. So we have to really agree on the ethical principles, on how we're going to share the value that is created. So I need very good personalities with highly ethical principles. That's what I want to start from. That's something we do not talk very much all around. We prefer to talk about the techniques, but ethical principle is very important. Second thing that I really rarely see is a written communication in companies. Please, reports, written communications, even before taking in an investment, at very good old days, between the co-founders. Please have your SH. Good times pass, bad times comes, so when the bad times comes, you have to know to separate with justice in that sense. So written skills in your communication, very highly written skills in startups. I know it's very hard to follow a panel after lunch, sorry, in that sense. We are looking for a very high domain expertise. So we as venture capitalists are always judged not to invest in newly university graduate. But the reason is that to be a disruptor, you need a domain expertise, a very good human relations. You're going to deal with the customers. You're going to deal with the investors. You're going to deal with the teams. And that requires a life to live, a life experience. When you are young, you think that you're always right. You can change the world, which is an aim. But realities come throughout the time. So you need some time to work in an area, preferably a startup maybe, or another corporate company, to learn to negotiate, to learn how to relate, to learn the business lunches, to learn networking, and to learn gathering around to achieve something. So that's actually very important in that sense. So we want founders who can tell their narratives and the works successfully. My entrepreneurs are dealing with very high technology, jobs. And when you go around with the corporates, it's not always to talk about this wonderful innovation in that sense. So what I advise to my entrepreneurs, go, if you don't have niece at 10 years old, go and find someone else's niece. Try to talk about your work to a 10 years old. Continue until it gets the 50% of your work time. Then go and sit around with corporates. Have your narrative, a good storytelling. You have to be good on stage. You are a disruptor. You cannot be shy on a stage. So please get rid of your shyness on stage. Have your self-confidence. You are doing such a great job. You're ready for disruption. And you are saying that I am going to change the habits of the whole planet. That requires a self-confidence. Especially if you're coming from emerging markets. Believe in your potential. I don't know who told the emerging market that they are not good enough. Don't believe in them. You are good enough. When I started to invest in Turkey in 2016, after I invested in Silicon Valley and Europe, they asked me, Hande Enes, why you are investing in emerging markets? Because I believe in the survival mode. Startup founders always in a survival mode. And the emerging markets are a great place to survive, to train yourself for that. So believe in your potential. If there is no internationally valid methodologies, your great idea doesn't mean anything. So potential should unite with an international methodologies. What I mean by that is this: read your analytics. Be able to show your analytics. I'm not talking about an invoice. If you're an artificial intelligence company, I am sure that you're not going to be able to have invoice for a long time. But still, there are some analytics that you can show to your investor, to your customer. If you're a B2B company, maybe the business cycle and everything. Get used to your business analytics. Business analytics generally don't lie. And when we try on something, we fall in love with it. You know the kids, your mother and father. The most beautiful kids are the ones that have yours. Why? Because you're so much into it. I know that you are in love with your product. Don't be in love with your product. Be in love with the analytics of your product. That's very important in that sense. So another thing is that By yourself, you cannot disrupt the company. We are not supermans or heroes. You have to learn how to acquire a good talent. So my founders should know to acquire a good talent and getting real well and sharing the responsibility of the teamwork in a sense. And should dream, of course. Founders that should dream. When I am really having the first meeting, sometimes what I get across is that I'm working so hard because you are working so hard to have a meeting with you. I'm working so hard in that sense. Sometimes we are having the first meeting and I'm finding myself have a higher ability to dream about that work. No, you should be able to dream more than I do for the first meeting because I have 50 words startup and that's your life. So please have your dreams, head over clouds, but your feet should be on the floor. So I'm looking for the game changers. I'm looking for the disruptors. I'm looking for the self-confidence. So if you have all these things, find me. There is always money. Don't forget, there is always money. If someone is telling you that there is no money, that's lying. There's a lack of methodology. There is the least working of the environment. So anything that you do, what I'm advising you right now, if you do and if you are capable of have this checked all over the things that I'm doing, you are going to find the money. James's flight from Southeast to give you all money. I'm coming from Istanbul to give you all money. Money is there. Are you there? Okay, thank you.
Ms. Sanet, thank you very much for your valuable words because your words come from the real life.
Exactly.
You said some key words. I wrote them: game changer, highly skilled, smarter, talent, dream. You know, dream. Everything begins with dream, and self-confidence. And the last thing, be love in not in product, be love in analytics. So, as she said, money anyway comes. If she finds the right environment, right place, money will come. So, thank you very much for your valuable things from real life. How an investor looks to the business or looks to the startup, she explained us. Thank you very much. And now I want to go on with Mr. Anar Aligul. He is also a game changer, I can say, because he, for example, created a very big company now on the market. It's working, risk company, and he also opened an innovation center. So he's going on doing this. So I want to ask him, what are the needs of startups from the beginning to the end?
Thank you, Avni Bey. And thank to the audience. Probably the most resilient people are here at the last session and for the last speaker. It's, I won't keep you for long, especially after what Hande Hanım said. I was expecting some big applauses and would leave. I would say the most important trait any startup needs and should have is resilience. Resilience at every stage. Either he or she is starting the product, starting the company, acquiring people, talents, raising money, selling it to the customers, talking to his colleagues, co-founders, everything. At every stage, he or she should be resilient. There are so many reasons to stop and to drop and to leave. At every corner. And I would highlight, emphasize exactly that resilience, which is true for anyone, either this is an artist or writer, but the startups who do change the world. I explicitly believe in that startups that change the world, they need the resilience, that trait, more than anyone else. What else startup might need? My colleagues here, I believe they touched all these things. That talent pool, money, as Hande Hanım said, the money is there. Innovation, as Inara Hanım said, innovation. We need to innovate at every stage. It doesn't matter. We are starting the startup, starting the company, or we are, I don't know, in my company, which is turning 30 years next year, if we do not innovate every 2-3 years, we won't survive. That is 100%. We won't simply survive. We have seen many cases. You have seen many cases. That's it. Avni Bey, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And our specific questions are not finished. Now I want to ask for all a common question, and I want you in few words answer to them and finish our session. What are your advices to young entrepreneurs and startups to request from the government and the request from the governments? What are the advices to young entrepreneurs and startups and the needs and requests from the governments? Two sides.
So, what they should request from the government, or?
For startups, what they need, your advice to startups and the request, the needs from the government sides.
Well, as government, I would wait for the request then. But when it comes to startups, I think we had so many great things that were told and pieces of advice. I would just maybe add like networking and learning, because networking is part of learning, if you ask me. Know more people, know even more people, learn from them, learn from everyone, and someone out there is waiting for you, so make sure you know that person. And this is on top of what was already said, because like many great things were already told. Thank you.
Okay, I think the startup enablers should be very much supported by the government. Startup enablers such as ICYF, Startup Centrum, and Sabah Lab, the incubation center and so on, they should be very much supported by government, because you can assume that these centers or these networks already have a filtering process, and these enablers or these multipliers really help to create or spark more entrepreneurship due to the work that they do. So if there were finite resources from the public or from the government, I would say just focus on the startup enablers first.
Thank you very much. Dr. Linda?
Okay, well, you can ask the government a lot, but it depends on, does the government have the capabilities to provide whatever needed? Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. If I want to talk about what the government or what are the power startup growth a country needs, I would say, first of all, an entrepreneurial culture. Second, enabling policy and regulation. Third, entrepreneurship education. And impactful investment. Well, in the 4 areas, the government has an intake and they can provide a lot, okay? But, and this is the traditional, by the way, what the government can provide. However, what I noticed that wasn't tackled through the past sessions are two things. The first one is related to intellectual property rights. What you have to ask your government is to protect your intellectual property rights. We are talking about applications, we are talking about technology, and here comes the protection of patents, here comes the protection of trademarks and copyrights. The second point is at the value chain level. You can ask your government to help you in policies related to value chains. The first one, it could be the sourcing, the production, and the marketing.
Thank you very much.
Failure is not a bad thing. When you're trying something big, it's part of the game to fail. Don't hesitate to bankrupt. I have reinvested some of my entrepreneurs that have bankrupted gracefully. Please be agile about your iteration. You are going to disrupt the whole world. You have to try so hard. Try, drop, try, drop, try, drop, depending on your analytics, not your good heart. That's the first thing. My expectations from government is that we need trade agencies of countries more in actions for startups. Traditional way of infrastructures of the trade agencies all around the world is not working for the startups. That's very important. Even the company structures that are made for traditional companies is not eligible for startups. We need to work on the laws, reconstruction of all the laws about the innovative companies in that sense. I want to thank you to the state of Turkey for this. They're asking so much and they're doing such a great job nowadays, and even the Eastern Europe trade agencies are asking for this methodology because they ask. Any of the countries, I'm more than helpful, not expecting anything to help. Any need from any country's trade agency, I'm there to help. Please don't hesitate to get any help from us in that sense. These states are started to do such a great job for funds, but the story starts with early stage VCs and individual investors. There are no grants for individual investors, good grants, except UK and Silicon Valley. Now it's time for us as emerging markets to work on the grants for individual investors, where the story begins. There are stories over there. We can take the UK stories, we can localize according to our ecosystems, and you're not going to believe how the ecosystem will grow if you support the individual investor, especially the scaled ones like me. In that sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Anar?
I would ask the entrepreneur, startup player, what he is doing to make the world a better place to live or to work. And I want them to ask that question of themselves. And my request to the government, if the government officer is empowered to support business environment, what he or she does to help that particular individual to succeed in his quest to make the world a better place. Right now, right here, the guy asks for something, and you should ask yourself, what can I do to help this guy? That is a very modest request, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For our speakers, we have a little more time. I want, before closing words, if any questions from the audience, from the participants, any questions? Please. Can you please, microphone?
I had a question about what type of a strategy should businesses take? Would it be like startups would take? Would it be to increase the profits over a short period, increase the potential profits over a long time, or increase the like the value of the company to sell to a larger company?
Please. Under
It depends on what kind of startups you are. If you are a blue ocean startup, meaning that if you're going to create your own market, this means that you're going to have long time for profit. You will have to train your AI, you're going to have the solutions, you're going to have lots of iteration, drops, and try and errors. So it's going to be hard for profit. So an investor type that you are looking for should not look for a profit for a period of time. So you have to go to a pre-revenue type of investment if you want to get investment. But if you are a red ocean startup, meaning that the market is there are a few players going around, one will take it all. We'll have the market dominance in that sense. So because the market is there, because there are people who are ready to buy that and that, you cannot play very long unless you have a goal in pre-revenue stage. Because investor will start to look for not the total amount of profit you take, but the acceleration rate of your profit throughout the time. So it depends, your question differs according to if you're a blue ocean startup or a red ocean startup.
Can I rephrase it?
a little bit louder, please.
Yeah. If we were to say that we're let's say we're a blue ocean startup and we're a tech startup, would it be to increase potential profits or would it be to increase the value of the company to sell to a larger company?
Your biggest issue is product market fit, because you're going to do two things different than the red ocean. We are talking about a market that the customers don't know yet. So you're going to make the market, and you're going to play on the urges, the vibes of people maybe, the feelings, the buyout, and you're going to tell them that, hey, you don't realize it, but you knew it. You know it. You need that thing to buy. So in that sense, you're going to spend a lot of money to change the behavior to find the product market fit. You can't have profit for sometimes. So you have to have a really solid, back bumper investor at your side if you're a blue ocean investor. And you have to start with a serious ticket size. If you are starting your journey with $50,000 and if you are becoming a blue ocean startup, well, good luck. Because with trial and error methods, you should start with one milestone to another. So you're going to need more money at the beginning as indivisible amount of money to do the first trial so you can show something for the second step of investment. So first product market fit and behavioral change analysis and analytics you have to observe, and you have to go to the investors that understands that.
Thank you.
As a first step, you could go and read that book, Blue Ocean Strategy. Would be very helpful. Promise.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Khan, and I'm 15. I was very interested in these kinds of conversations about making a startup and earning revenue.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the audiences? Okay, please, Taha Bey.
Question is about the criteria of the investors, because especially Hande Hanım and Mr. James doing great job on investing the startups, because this is first of all encouraging these startups and entrepreneurs. Second, they are benefiting, so they are good examples that this is a sector. But from my professional experience as attorney at law, I deal with so many due diligences for acquisitions and mergers. But at that acquisitions and mergers, we're not talking about a startup. So I try to understand what is the decision-making structure of an investor for a startup, either red ocean or blue ocean or from another planet. What is your criteria? How you calculate your investments, your earnings? So what is the analytics, as Hande Hanım said, is important thing. So if they please, I really want to hear their structure of decision-making procedure and decision tree. Thank you very much.
Who wants to answer? Okay. Stan or some, and okay.
Word.
First, Stan,
First
then,
me? Okay.
Yeah.
Again, it's really differentiated according to the stage of the startups. First of all, if we are talking about a generative AI that's working on the open AI, this means that a production, the products that we're talking about, is going to take a long time. So same reasoning with the blue ocean. So in that sense, if you're asking for the profit and if your due diligence documentation is towards the traditional finance, you're not going to understand anything. Yes, I don't understand anything. So what you're going to do is actually, it's a pre-revenue startup. You have to look at the market and the founder's vision of talking about the future. Two things that you have to. And founder's background is very important. There should be some achievement KPIs in the past. It doesn't have to be a startup, but in a very valuable company, a domain expertise, some achievement points that they can show is very important in that sense. And the third thing that you can look, if you cannot look at the traditional finance, is if they can attract a wisdom chamber. That's what I called. That's a name that I made it up. Wisdom chamber means attracting good early stage investors, attracting talented people. Can this founder create a joyful working environment? Well, people will run to it, to work in that environment. So many startups really write me and say that, Handel, we don't have money, so we cannot hire people. But there are entrepreneurs who can have a company vibe and company joy and company innovation and futuristic understanding that people are run there to work not for the salary but stock option. So vital, agile, respected working environment is something that you have to look for. And also communication skills. And math. If there is no math there, we can understand, but they have to show you how they are going to put their key performance index metrics, how they're going to measure their success throughout the way. You're going to tell, they have to tell them that these are our KPIs for success, that's what we're going to do, here's our milestones. Yes, they cannot give you a plan for 5 years, but they have to be sure about their next milestone. They have to have their trial and error plans to show. They should look confident about what they're going to try. They can fail, but confidence of trying. Okay.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Tan, can you add something? Or would you like to add something? Okay. Thank you very much. I want to thank Mr. Taha and Mr. Kam for contribution with their questions. So, as I said, any other question?
First of all, thank you all of you for great motivational speech. I'm Shahla from Phoenix, and you said, Hande Hanım, that we have to be in love with our analytics, and everybody knows measuring is key for startups. And you know, and everybody knows that the resource is limited in startup. How can we solve this solution? How to be in love with analytics? Is there any support on to get this analytics to measure daily, to see our say management board?
First of all, innovation centers are very important in that sense. to introduce the methodologies. The accelerators should be in charge of it. So if you want to learn it more, just reach out to accelerators. They're going to teach you how to measure these things. What to measure depends on your stage. If you're a B2C startup or a B2B startup. If you're, for instance, a B2B startup, look at your business cycles. First cold emails. First warm emails. How many warm emails you can reach out? How does your referrals are going? What is the time limit between your first email and the first meeting that you're getting? Can you shorten these periods of time? Or these are getting long periods of time? Can you do anything about your onboarding periods? Can you shorten your onboarding periods by improving your technology and less humanizing your processes? For instance, a few things with the B2B startup. With the B2C startups, to joke my entrepreneurs, I said, follow the love metrics. What is a love metrics? When you fall in love with someone, you want to see that person a lot. Yeah? You don't want to go away. You want to stay with it. You want to maybe change some things, but if they don't change it, you're okay with using it. That's exactly the same thing with the B2C apps and the customers. When they see you, no matter if you're an MVP or not, they're going to like you. They want to stay with you. They want to reuse you. They're going to give this to some referrals to the friends about it. So referrals rates is very important. Very be careful about your retentions in that sense. Cohort. What kind of segmentations? Who are your customers? There are lots of startups that is reading the analytics of the companies. Use analytic companies. There are some analytic companies that you can see. Go for it. Some surveys to know your customer. So these things that you have to look at, especially if you are a B2C startup, very careful about your 1, 3, 7, and month retention rates.
Thank you very much. To attend another program, Mrs. Inara has to leave, so let us thank her and let her go. Thank you very much, Mrs. Inara. One more question, please.
Yeah, I had a secondary question about when should a company go public?
Higher, please.
I had a secondary question about when should a company go public?
Company going public?
Yeah, to being on the public trading platform, as you attract more public investors, not private investors.
Public investors takes time, and honestly, in an innovation environment, they follow the private investors' behaviors a lot. So anything that have a more chance to go to public is the ones that are coming from the private investors' portfolio and funds. All the SPAC, institutions and similar services like that are more eager to work with the reputable private investors' portfolio, in that sense. A lot of instruments are coming up. The going public is getting easy and easy in that sense. But public is not a way to go around the private, investors in that sense. But there are crowdfunding platforms that you can use at the early stage investors. We can't count it as a public investors, of course. But with the crowdfunding, the startups that taking their power from their technology barrier is taking a really hard time to fund themselves of crowdfunding. Because on the crowdfunding, there are hundreds of people there, but they don't know how to actually understand the value of the technological value that you're going to lead to be a unicorn. So they invest what they understand. They're ordinary people that are walking on the street. So everything cannot be funded on crowdfundings. That's actually what I see in that sense.
I don't really mean crowdfunding. I mean like a stock market, going public with your stock.
Oh, stock market, that's, as I told, there are instruments that, stock markets are interested in, but they are very eager to really look for the private investors' portfolio, because innovation product is a new thing. Disruption is a new thing for the rest of the world, actually. We're talking about the sceneries that are coming from, 70s. We're talking about 30, 40 years of history in that sense. So actually getting investment from a private investor will lead to a better route to public markets in that sense.
And when would be the most optimal time to go public to maximize your company's growth?
Oh, that's a huge whole story that I can talk about like 2 hours, but probably we're not going to need time. Just catch me around the coffee and I'm going to hold you for an hour to talk about these things, because lots of things that you have to look for to go to public. Lots of things, especially about disruptive products, where sometimes there's no profit depending on the disruptability.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions and for your answers. Today we talked about the environment. How can we grow our startups? How can we help to grow our startups? And how can we begin from the A to Z? Everything, as Hande Hanım told, everything begins with a dream. Dream is everything. Without dream, we cannot do anything. But startup is something different from the dream. After dream, you have to add something on it. You have to add, first of all, action. Without action, every of us have dreams. But who can add action on it? Do something. Please, please.
I get emails from all around the world saying that, Hande Hanım, I have an idea, and I hesitate to talk about that idea because I'm scared that it's going to be stolen. Let me give you one answer that's going to be an answer to all emails. If your great idea is stolen and can be executable, it's only one thing. Is it that easy? Maybe that idea is not that great. Because great idea is the one, no matter how many times you hear it, it's hard to execute, requires a domain expertise, and a critical technology barrier. Everything can be replicable, but hard to replicate technology behind it. So, I just
Thank you very much. After dream, as Hande Hanım said, it becomes an idea. Dreams becomes idea, then you add an action, encourage, hardworking, and we can say few criteria, but the money comes at the end. Anyway, the money comes. So, please do not lose and spend your ideas. Please work on it, work on them. The investors or the governments, anyway, will help you, will find you. And nowadays, the most important thing, I think, relationship management. Without relationship management, you cannot achieve till the end. So, for today's session, I want to first of all thank our speakers. Mr. Inara, she has to leave, but I want to thank to her. Mr. James Tan, he came from Singapore. Thank you very much. Dr. Linda Kessim, she came from Lebanon. Thank you very much for coming and for your contribution. Mr. Hande Enes came from Turkey and contributed us a lot. Thank you very much. And Mr. Anar, he is from Azerbaijan also, but he lives a lot more than Azerbaijan, outside Azerbaijan. So also you're welcome and thank you very much. And I also want to thank you for listening us. And last of all, I want to thank my, our President Ilham Aliyev for this support, and two ministries, Minister of Economics of Azerbaijan and Ministry of Youth and Sports, and two young and dynamic team, Kobiya, Mr. Orhan Bey and his team, and IFCV, Mr. Taha Bey and his team. They are great. Thank you for all. Thank you for coming. Thank you.